Hey, so I forgot to hit record on the start of my review session today, so this is going to be kind of a mishmash of the two different sessions. But I wanted to make sure that I brought this up because it's one of the non-graphing ways of looking at the labor market that you very likely could see on this exam. So this is the 2007 free response question, number 2. I posted it under micro review material. And let's just sort of talk about it. So when you're looking at this kind of a question and it's dealing with the labor market, my biggest recommendation is to go ahead and think about these in a different way than which they're labeled. So this labels the number of unskilled workers hired. And the way that I would tend to think about this is as if it's the quantity of labor. And when you think about graphing the labor market, which I'll do like a quick little graph over here, that's how you would label your x-axis. And then quantity of radios is really thinking about total product. And so I put it that way because you're looking at every single worker hired. How much are all of those workers combined? So like, let's say we're at 3 workers, all 3 workers are producing 60 units. When you're really going to end up needing for the labor market marginal product, because ultimately marginal product times the price of the radio in this case is equal to marginal revenue product. And when you're trying to determine how many workers to hire or how much output is profit maximizing, this is the equation that you're going to need. And its marginal revenue product should be greater than or equal to wage, right? So that's why I want you to sort of think about these terms a little differently than they might be labeled on the actual question. So when you're calculating marginal product, you're just taking the difference as you go from one worker to the next. And so remember that marginal product should possibly increase at first, but then it will decrease over time, right? Your marginal product curve kind of looks like that. So we go from 0 to 20, and it's obviously an increase up to 20. Then as you go from 20 to 45, it's still increasing, but now diminishing marginal returns sets in as we hit 15, and then 10, 5, 4, and 1 unit. Now, in the question, it's saying that you can produce all the clock radios at each of them being sold for a price of $20 each. So we're in a perfectly competitive product market, and each worker is getting paid a wage of $90 per day per worker. And so we're also in a perfectly competitive labor market, all right, which is kind of a key thing to know here. So now that we know that clock radios are $20 each, we can multiply the marginal product times the price of 20 in order to get marginal revenue product. So it's 400, 500, 300, and I'll extend my lines out, 200, 100, 80, and finally 20. All right, so letter A is asking you to draw a correctly labeled graph of the current supply for unskilled labor, which is really pretty simple. Again, I know they're not going to necessarily ask you to graph it, but they could ask you, what does the graph look like? And your answer would be, it's a horizontal supply curve for labor at a wage of $90. That's it. Easy peasy. Next up, what is the profit maximizing output level? And then explain it. So if we know that our equation for dictating that is marginal revenue product is greater than or equal to wage, if our wage is 90, and you don't go multiplying by anything, just it's 90, that's all you need to know. And so obviously there is no 90 over here, but we have 180. And since they can't be equal, you want the money that the firm brings in per worker, per output per worker, I should say, to be greater than how much they're paying that worker, which makes a lot of sense, which means that they are going to choose to hire 5 workers. And to answer the question, it's an output level of 75. And so your reason would be that to determine, you could literally say, to determine the optimal production point, you want to hire as many workers as where marginal revenue product is greater than or equal to wage. At 5 workers, marginal revenue product is 100, wage is 90. If you were to move to 6 workers, all of a sudden marginal revenue product drops to 80 and it's not profitable. And that's a great answer for that question. You could probably even say it a little less wordy than I said it, but that's the general idea. Now, letter C is asking you to use a new technology that increases the productivity of its unskilled workers. And so the key wording there is increasing productivity. If that's the case, it means your marginal product is going to increase. And when marginal product increases, marginal revenue product increases. So they're not asking you to graph it, but let's say you had graphed it. Here's your initial marginal revenue product and your quantity of labor that you want to hire. If your marginal revenue product increases, it means marginal revenue product shifts to the right. It means you are hiring a larger quantity of workers, but in answer to C2, it does not impact the wage that you're paying those workers because the market dictates wage and HZRAD has no control over it. So that's your quick sum up to this 2007. If you were to see something like this, it would be combined with more questions because the format for question 1 is a combo of questions 2 and 3 that you would normally see on the AP.